When we talk about depression, we mostly hear the same phrases over and over. You need to take care of yourself. Get help. It'll pass. And yes, these words often come from a place of love, but no one really tells you what it feels like when you're living it from the inside. No one prepares you for the weight of opening your eyes in the morning, already feeling like the day is lost before it even begins. The truth is, most of what's said about depression stays on the surface. People talk about sadness and anxiety, but they don't talk about the exhaustion of simply existing. They don't mention the quiet wish to disappear without making a sound, or the overwhelming effort it takes to keep pretending everything is fine when you're breaking apart inside. No one tells you that living with depression feels like dragging around a body soaked in water, heavy, slow, difficult, and still, you keep going. Maybe this truth isn't hidden out of cruelty. Maybe it's because it's hard to face a pain that doesn't bleed, that can't be measured with tests or prescriptions, but that doesn't make it less real. In fact, its invisibility makes it even lonelier. And that's what we'll talk about from here on, the parts no one says out loud. Because people who live with depression don't need more advice. They just need to be seen. When we picture someone with depression, we often imagine a person lying in bed crying with a distant look in their eyes. But the truth no one talks about is that most of the time, depression wears a smile. It hides. Behind jokes, behind "I'm just tired," behind routines carried out on autopilot. In real life, depression rarely looks like what we see in the movies. I've heard it myself. You, depressed, but you're always making people laugh. As if the ability to smile cancels out the pain I carry inside. So you learn to hide it even more. You learn to put on makeup, not just on your face, but on your soul, because showing how you really feel is risky. Being honest about your pain means being misunderstood, judged, even pushed away. Depression has no face, and that's what makes it so dangerous. While everyone thinks you're fine, you're actually sinking. And because no one notices, you start thinking the problem must be you. That you're weak, broken, ungrateful. But you're not. Depression wears many masks. Sometimes it sits quietly next to you at work. Sometimes it stares back from the mirror. And sometimes it smiles at everyone, except on the inside. The first step in truly supporting those who suffer is understanding that pain doesn't always look the way we expect. In fact, it often hides in the places no one thinks to look. Living with depression often feels like being on stage all the time. You wake up, get dressed, and along with your clothes, you put on a character. A character who smiles, who says, "I'm fine," who joins conversations, laughs at jokes, completes tasks, all while everything inside is falling apart. It's tiring. More than that, it's exhausting. Because keeping up this act demands energy you don't have. Every interaction becomes a conscious effort. Every public moment is a battle between what you feel and what you need to show. You hear your voice sounding normal, but you know you're pretending. You know that deep down, you're just trying to make it through the day without falling apart in front of someone. And this performance isn't about vanity. It comes from fear. Fear of worrying others. Fear of being a burden. Fear of being seen as someone who complains too much or who doesn't appreciate life. So you follow the script. You smile. You say you're tired, but okay. You fake strength. You fake control. The problem is, over time, you start to confuse yourself with the role. You begin to think no one will ever truly see who you are, and that isolates you even more. Because even surrounded by people, you feel completely unknown. Living with depression is acting to protect others from your pain. But it drains you from within. Because deep down, all you really want is to take the mask off and still be accepted. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. Depression has this cruel ability to isolate you even in the middle of a crowd. You talk, smile, participate, but inside, you're collapsing silently. And the most painful part is realizing that no one notices. No one sees that you're dying on the inside. You might be at a party, at work, sitting at the family table, and still feel invisible. Not because people don't care, but because you've learned to hide it so well that no one suspects. It's an isolation built with smiles, with "I'm fine," with "just tired." And the longer it goes on, the more you feel it's not worth trying to explain. Because how do you put into words a pain you barely understand yourself? How do you say you're tired for no reason, that you cry without knowing why, that you wake up wishing you could just disappear? So you go quiet, and that silence slowly eats you alive. What no one tells you is that often the pain of someone living with depression is invisible even to those right beside them. And that invisibility doesn't make the pain any less real. It just makes it lonelier. One of the hardest truths about living with depression is the constant fear of being a burden. You start to believe that your presence bothers people, that your sadness is too much, that your pain is draining for others. So instead of asking for help, you stay quiet. Instead of saying, "I need you," you say, "I'm fine." This fear is sneaky. It creeps into your simplest thoughts. Am I overwhelming the people who care about me? What if I ruin someone's day by opening up? What if no one can handle me for long? So, out of caution, you pull away. You withdraw. You fake it. And every time you swallow your tears or hide your pain, you feel yourself fading just a little more. Guilt comes too. Guilt for not being light, for not getting better fast enough, for taking up space with something no one can see. It becomes a battle between wanting comfort and not wanting to inconvenience anyone. What no one tells you is that this fear of being a burden leads many to suffer in silence, exactly when they need support the most. But the truth is, the people who truly love you don't want you to hide your pain. They want to walk with you through it, because being human means needing others. And needing others doesn't make you a burden. It makes you real. To outsiders, getting out of bed, taking a shower, replying to a message, or leaving the house might seem simple. But for someone living with depression, these small actions can turn into mountains, nearly impossible to climb. What was once routine becomes an obstacle. What used to be automatic now demands conscious, exhausting effort. Everything feels like it takes energy you just don't have. You know you need to get up, but your body feels like lead. You know you should eat, but you're not hungry. You see a message and know you should answer, but just looking at the notification drains you. And then comes the guilt, that quiet, persistent voice that says, "You're useless. You can't even do the basics." But no one sees how hard it was just to get to this point. These small giant battles happen every day. They're invisible victories, uncelebrated because the world doesn't understand. But for those who live it, taking a shower can be an act of bravery. Leaving the house can be a milestone. Sending a simple "hey" might take hours of internal struggle. The truth no one tells you is that living with depression means overcoming in areas most people never think twice about. And every small act you manage, even through the pain, is actually a powerful sign of your strength. The truth no one tells you about living with depression is that it's not just about feeling sad. It's about survival. It's about getting through entire days trying to stay upright when everything inside you is begging to collapse. It's about continuing to exist even when you don't want to, even when there's no hope, no meaning. It's a silent, daily, invisible battle. And it takes incredible courage. No one tells you that sometimes the biggest accomplishment of the day is simply having endured. There was no triumph, no visible progress, but there was persistence. There was life, even if only barely. Living with depression feels like rowing against a current without knowing if there's land ahead. And still, you keep rowing. This is the truth almost no one says out loud, that being alive while feeling dead inside is already a massive achievement. That continuing to try even when you don't believe in anything is an act of bravery. Not because you don't feel pain, but because you do and you stay. So don't diminish your fight. Don't compare it to anyone else's. What you're facing is real, deep, and worthy of respect. You might not see it now, but surviving every day is, in its own way, a form of victory. After everything, after so many heavy days, suffocating thoughts, invisible battles, you are still here. Maybe no one knows what it truly cost you. Maybe you can't even put it into words, But the truth is, even through the pain, even with the exhaustion, even with the urge to disappear, you stayed. And that matters. It matters more than any comforting phrase or perfect advice. It matters because it shows that no matter how deep the darkness, how heavy the burden, there's still a part of you that believes, or at least still resists. You are not weak for feeling this way. You are strong for staying. May this video have been in some way a safe space for your pain. May you have felt seen, understood, held, even just for a moment. And know this, you are not alone. You never were. Maybe tomorrow it will still hurt. Maybe nothing changes overnight. But today, right now, you took a step. And sometimes, one small step is what separates falling from continuing. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being here. If this message touched you in any way, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find comfort, words that understand your pain, and a community that listens without judgment. Leave a comment, even a short one. Sometimes writing what we feel is the first step to not feeling so alone. Turn on the notification bell to keep receiving content that speaks directly to your heart. You don't have to face all of this alone. One day at a time. We are here with you.